guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be the September budget with me video. I'm going to apologize up front if you hear any dog noises or baby noises. I'm the only one here with our baby right now, so she is hopefully taking a nap. But if you hear any of that noise in the background, I do apologize. Same thing for the dogs. They're just running loose right now, so I hope that we have minimal interruptions. But regardless, we're going to get started with this video. Hopefully this video will be much better than last month's video. I am going to actually go through our budget process with you again like we did for the month of July. I will let you know right now though, our money will probably not be any better kept up with as far as our budgets go this month than they were for the month of August. But for now, we're just going to get started. I don't know how these videos work, if you guys kind of like follow along or just take some ideas for yourself or whatever, but if you are going to follow along, we're going to take our bill book and we're going to get started. For this month, I did actually sit down and kind of calculate what our bills would look like once we got paid. Once we got paid, I was able to see what our checks were going to be. And I did kind of roughly calculate that at the beginning of this month, at the beginning of September. It is the 4th of September today, so I did this a few days before the 1st of the month when our checks actually dropped. That has changed already because we have begun to start spending some of that money, not only on ourselves, but just on day-to-day living expenses for our household and for the family. So that money is going to look a little bit different today, but I do need to sit down and recalculate it so that I'll know where we're at so we can start budgeting our money correctly for this month. The reason I said all that was to say this: I have not looked at these since I looked at them initially, so I kind of don't really know what's going on right now. I have needed to sit down and recalculate everything, and because I wanted to do that before we left for our trip to California, I did want to film it for you so that I can have this budget with me video out of the way for this month before, like last month, before everything takes off and I did not sit down and film the video. So the first thing I'm going to do is go pull up our bank account. I always have to have that available to reference when we're doing our bills, because I want to make sure that bills that have come out of our account are taken, like are accounted for, and bills that have not come out of our account are not accounted for. If you watched the budget with me video for July, you'll kind of know how this works. If not, I'll just briefly go through it again. I do like to pull up our account and find out which bills have actually been taken out, so I'll know what's been paid for already, so that I'm not accidentally counting bills twice. That means that I have to actually go back and look at the previous month, because we have a few bills that come out of the very end of each month that sometimes aren't reflected until after the first few days of the new month. So I have to go through and make sure those have actually come out, which is what I'm going to do now. Okay, so all of last month's bills have come out of our account, so we don't have to worry about accounting for any of those. So that means we're going to flip to the new month, which is September. And we're going to double check and make sure none of these bills came out as well, because some of them do come out as early as the first day of the month. So some of them have already come out of our account, and I definitely don't want to miscalculate our money by assuming we have less money than we actually do. So basically all I do is I go through every single one of these transactions, and when I see one that is a bill, then I'll make sure, I'll go ahead and mark it off for the month of September or the last month or whatever it is that I'm looking at. Okay, so only one of our bills for the first of the month has already come out, so that means I'm going to calculate the remaining bills, and I'm actually going to just subtract that from the lump sum that we have in our account right now. The only thing that I do need to take into consideration when I'm calculating the number that's in our account is I need to be mindful of any tips that we may have left at any restaurants, because those don't show up immediately. Like when the payment is pending, those show up after the payment has already processed. So the next thing that I do, of course, is go through and make sure there are no restaurant tips that are possibly going to come out, and if so, then I will take those into account when subtracting my bills. Okay, so we have at least 4 restaurants that are still pending that we've gone to recently, and I'm not sure exactly the exact amount that we left on a tip at each of those restaurants, so I just wanted to kind of let you in on what I normally do sometimes. Is sometimes I will kind of do a rough estimate of what those tips might have been that we would have left at those restaurants, and I will just leave an amount in our account to cover that. So if we are going to leave a few $100s in there anyway for budgets, then I don't have to worry about those tips coming out. If we are going to try to do as much of a zero-based budget as possible, then I may leave $20 to $30 worth of money in our account just to make sure those tips are covered. Generally what I'll do then is I'll go ahead and start subtracting my bills from the amount of money that we have in our account, and I will subtract until I get down to about $30, and then I know that that last $30 has to remain in there for those tips. Or, like I said, I have to leave a few $100s in there for any budgets that we need money for between now and our next payday. So we're gonna get started. So the number that I came up with was a leftover total of $551.55. That is the amount of money that we will have left over for spending until our next payday, which will be around the 14th. It's usually about midway through the month. And then we receive our rent check a little bit later in the month, this month. So we've got 2 more paychecks coming in. Those 2 paychecks have to be able to cover the remainder of our bills for the month. Typically, that's the way that our bills do work out. But I do always go in and calculate that number just to make sure, because I do want to make sure that the money that's coming in at the end of the month is going to cover the remainder of our bills. If not, then I'll know that I need to hold back some of the extra money left over at the beginning of the month. But now that I've calculated that number, I actually like to go through and calculate it one more time just to make sure it's double accurate. So that's what I'm going to do next. So I did come up with the exact same number the second time. So if I get the same number twice, I usually just leave it at that and I move on. So that number was $551.55 left over for the beginning of the month. Typically we would use that money to pay for our living expenses between now and the next payday, which usually includes gas money, groceries, toiletry items. And when I say toiletry items, I mean not only bathroom toiletry items, but just household items like cleaning supplies or anything else that we may need just for the household. We also budget for our baby, and we budget for our dogs, and I think that kind of covers it for the most part. In the July video, I did mention that our total living expenses budget should be $1,081. That includes shopping money for us to have ourselves each month. So as you can see, the $551 is only roughly half of that amount, which means at the end of the month we would still need about that much more money left over, hopefully, to help take us through the rest of the month. So the next thing that I do is I roughly estimate what our checks are going to look like for the end of the month, and I go ahead and calculate our bills out of that. And I have already calculated that here on this sheet of paper from when I did the bills at the first of the month, like the few days before the month began. I did a rough estimate of what our pay would look like, and then I actually subtracted the amount of money that our bills would cost, and that left us with, okay, and that at the end of the month leaves us with $1,400. $1,456 is the exact amount plus the change. Generally, we do not have that much money left over. We usually only have maybe $1,500 for the total month, because we do take the 1081 and we use that for ourselves, and then we're usually left over with $500 to $700 outside of that that we can actually use to pay off debt or to save money. However, this month is a little bit different because I think in the month of August, my husband got 3 paychecks instead of the normal 2 that he gets, just because of the way that the weeks fell. So what we did was we took his very last paycheck that he got at the very end of August and we put it towards this month, which means that he still has 2 paychecks that we're waiting on for the month of September. That's why we have that large amount of money. However, we are going out of town this month. We have planned a trip to California, and we do not have all of the cash that we need to go on that trip. So we were hoping that in the month of September we would have a little bit of money left over so that we could take cash with us. We are in a habit of using credit cards, so if we did not have the amount of cash that we need, we did plan to use a credit card to make up the difference. However, we did have more than half of our trip covered on cash. We were able to pay for our flight tickets, and we should be able to pay for our hotel stay and then our rental car. All of that is around, let me calculate that for you really quickly because I don't want to give you an estimate. I want you to know. Flight tickets, hotel stay, and rental car is around $21.46. We will be able to pay for all of that with cash. However, while we're there, we were worried that we would not have any cash to take with us while we're there just to eat off of. So I'm hoping that throughout the month of September we can either make up for that or we can find a little bit of money to take with us. This is what kind of makes it a little bit tricky. When we get back, we will be out of money, so to speak. We will get back before we get paid again. So if we use the $500 that I was telling you about that we'll have left over at the beginning of the month, if we take all of that with us and use all of that for cash so that we can spend cash while we're there, then that means that we're going to be getting home with zero money left, and we're going to have to wait a few days for payday. It won't be a long time. It will only be about three days worth, but we will have to wait on that payday. And I don't want to run into any problems as far as needing gas money, needing to go get groceries, or just simply wanting to go out and get something to eat. Because I know that if those things come up, we will use a credit card if we have to, and I'm trying to avoid that if I can. In order to see that leftover $1,400, we have to wait for 3 paychecks to come in. The first paycheck is going to go towards some of our bills. The second paycheck will go towards the rest of our bills, and then the very last paycheck we won't receive until the last couple of days of the month. So we're not going to have that full $1,400 that I was telling you about until the very last couple of days of the month. So this is where this is where sometimes I can look at that amount of money and I think, okay, that's more than we need for the entire month. I don't have to budget this month. I know that we've got everything that we need plus more, so let's just not budget. And if we have a month like that, we're typically looking at our account, keeping an eye on it, making sure that we're not going into negative, but we're not really sitting down and budgeting and making sure that we're not overspending in some areas. When we do sit down and do a full budget, which we didn't really budget very well in the month of August, that's really what happened in August. But when we do sit down and do like a budget and we stick to it, we find ourselves saving a lot more money. And that is what we're needing to do in order to pay off more debt. So that is the purpose of our budget. And then, of course, just sitting down and filming it and talking it over with you guys, I just thought would be interesting. I thought it would kind of help you guys see a little bit more into our finances and our struggles, and maybe kind of help you understand why we spend money the way that we do. So, part of me wants to just be like, okay, well, we have the money that we need to go to California, we have the money that we need to come home and spend, we're good. But the other part of me wants to say, how much money do we really need in California? How much money do we need when we get home? And how much can we actually save? Because we do need to save money. We do need to pay debt off. We weren't able to put a sum of any money on debt during the month of August, so I do want to be able to do that for September. We're also looking at Christmas coming up. I think I mentioned this in one of my previous August videos. When we get back from our trip, we're wanting to save money between now and Christmas so that we can afford Christmas with cash. And so that when our taxes come around next year, both property tax and IRS tax, we can pay those full amounts with cash. We have been able to pay them with cash before. It's just that we kind of have to sit around and wait for the money to come in and kind of save it throughout the first few months of the year. And it puts us in a bind so that we're really trying to do without throughout those months. And it makes those months a lot harder on us financially. And I don't want that to happen next year. I just want to save the money that we need and be done with it. So basically, we have a lot of decisions to make, a lot of plans to make, and we have not sat down to do that yet. And that is why it's hard for me to tell you really what our goals are with our money this month. In reality, what I will probably do is take the $500 that we have in our account with us to California. Of course, it'll come with us anyway because we have debit cards. But I'll let that be our spending money. And I will try, both of us, of course, we will try to stick to that price range as much as possible. I don't feel like I have any direction for this month other than save as much as we can, spend as little as possible. That's really what we try to do every month. It doesn't work out because we're not always watching our money as well as we should be when it comes to spending. Okay, so I would love to hear your opinion or your suggestions on I don't know, how you would maybe manage some of this leftover money, what you feel like you would take on a trip. Just some feedback, I guess. because I'm just curious as to what you guys are thinking right now as you're sitting there listening to this video. That's a lot of money for us, and it would normally excite me to think that we would have that much money left over to put on debt or to do anything else with. However, with this trip in mind, I know that we're going to spend a lot of money while we're gone. Therefore, when we get back, I feel like that $1,400 that we have is really just going to be spent as well, just on typical daily living expenses, and then none of it will get saved. So although I'm excited that we have money to take with us, money that we need for this month, I'm also fearful that we will not pay anything off this month as well. So I guess I just kind of wanted to hear your guys' feedback on that. And then if you have any suggestions on how to make it work, I'm open to hear it. But I think that's going to be it for this video. That is going to be the overall outlook for our entire month. However, what we do with this money, you probably won't be aware of until I come back to do next month's video, which will be the October budget video. And in that video, I'll kind of just give you like a recap of what did take place in September, if we were able to pay anything off, or what we really did with the money. Okay, so that's going to complete this video. I'm sorry if it was really super long. Thanks for staying with me. Thanks for watching. Please comment your suggestions or your feedback below. I would love to hear it. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.